Welcome back, everybody. Today we'll be discussing the muscles of the mastication. They're made up of basically four muscles. Um, and before diving into their details, I just want to show you them. Here we have this one highlighted in yellow called the temporalis muscle. The second one is the Masseteric superficial muscle. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the other two. Just gonna try. Just gonna try and show you the other two. So the other two left is one of them is the medial pterygoid. Okay, and finally the lateral pterygoid. Let me try and find that for you. So that's the medial pterygoid, and here that's the lateral pterygoid. Okay, and if you noticed, let's go back to yes. So here you have the medial pterygoid. You see two heads for the medial pterygoid, lateral and medial head, but the lateral pterygoid has a superior and the inferior head. Okay, just keep that in mind as we go into the details. But this is the that's the third one, and that's the fourth one. Okay, so mesoteric muscle, one very important thing about it is that it's the strongest muscle in your human body. Like, the human body is made up of a lot of muscles, but this one right here is the strongest, as it helps you create a very strong force of the jaw, like when you bite. So yeah, okay, so those are the four major ones: temporalis, masseteric, the medial pterygoid right here, okay, and the lateral pterygoid. The lateral pterygoid is made up of superior, inferior, and is made up of lateral, medial. Okay, let's go and discuss the details of everything related to those muscles. And just before that, I want to tell you how usually I study, and it can work for so many people. I would just summarize the general information about a muscle. In this case, there are four, and then I would then dive into write a full speech about it, just to throw everything I know about those muscles onto one place. And then after that, I would walk around to repeatedly recite what I know about those muscles. And then I would move on to the next point of study. Okay. I'm going to then dive into the details of it. So here, this is what I'm looking at, is the book that I'm currently putting out for sale. If you guys want to take it or purchase it, it's available. Okay, just give me a second. How can I, here, a single page. I want you guys to really focus on details within here. Okay. So the muscles of mastication, as I said, there are four: Masseteric, temporalis, medial pterygoid, and lateral pterygoid. Origin, they arise from the temporal and infratemporal fossa. You guys know those fossas already. The temporal is this region, the infratemporal is medial to the what is it called, the mandible. The insertion, all are inserted into the ramus of the mandible. Okay. The actions, of course, it elevates the mandible, protrude it, and then it also moves side to side, or protrude it, or elevate it. Sometimes it also retracts it. So the first one we're going to discuss here is the Masseter. Origin, it has two heads, superficial head and a deep head, and you have to know where exactly it inserts and originates. So insertion is into the outer surface of the ramus of the mandible. As you guys see here, the superficial head and the deep head, they different in their origins. The superficial head originates from the lower border of zygomatic arch, okay, the deep head from the inner surface of the zygomatic arch, okay? And so the nerve supply, what innervates the masseteric muscle, easy here, masseteric nerve, from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. The mandibular nerve, as you guys remember, comes back to one of the branches of the trigeminal nerve. And so masseteric nerve is one of the smaller branches of the mandibular nerve. The actions of the masseter is that it's a strong elevator. So it elevates the jaw, hence creates that force of biting. It's an anti-gravity muscle. The gravity acts this way. The muscle acts against it, protrudes the mandible as well. Okay. Yeah, there are some relations here if you want to have more information about it. The next one we're going to discuss is the is the temporalis muscle. It is a it says here fan shaped, filling the temporal fossa. So the side of the lateral view of the skull, as you guys remember, that it has a fossa for the attachment of the temporalis muscle, and this fossa is called the temporalis fossa, and it's the origins of this muscle actually comes out of the superior borders of this fossa. And here, these are the inferior temporal line, like here, inferior temporal line. Sometimes people also say it's from also the superior temporal line. It also originates from the floor of the temporal fossa, like within this region, and deep surface of the temporal fascia. Okay, so I think there is a fascia that lines on top of the temporalis muscle. I'm not sure, but these are the origins. The insertion into the tip anterior border inner surface of the coronoid process, and we all know the coronoid process is the process of the mandible. Okay, what else? These are more about the fibers and like how the muscle reaches in through the zygomatic arch, but the nerve supply, two deep temporal nerves from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. Easy, okay? In action, it strongly elevates the mandible, like the masseter, and is an anti-gravity muscle. It retracts the protruded mandible. So the masseteric protrudes it, and the temporalis retracts it. Okay, that's the second one. The third one, it can be really confusing to look onto the medial pterygoid muscles, but once you get your head around it, I think it'll be fine. Same with the lateral. So the medial pterygoid has, of course, the medial and the lateral heads. Here it says deep and superficial, according to if you look from this side. So the deep head originates from the medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate, okay? Medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, remember? Superficial head from the maxillary tuberosity. Insertion, they both insert into the medial surface of the angle of the mandible. Medial surface, if you get the mandible, and you look at the medial surface where the let's say the mandibular foramen lies, that's the side we're talking about. Medial surface of the angle of mandible. The nerve supply is the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, and you will study that from the main trunk, nerves come out of the mandibular nerve and innervate the medial pterygoid. Okay, so the action moves the jaw side to side. Okay, protrusion. Okay, and elevation. Okay, that's the medial pterygoid. And finally, the lateral pterygoid, made up of a superior and an inferior head. Here, as I said, upper and lower heads. The upper head originates from the infratemporal surface and crest of greater wing of sphenoid. I think if you just say greater wing of sphenoid, it'll be fine. Lower head, lateral surface of lateral pterygoid. Okay, unlike the medial pterygoid, here, this one originates from the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid. Insertion, both those heads insert into the pterygoid fossa on anterior aspect of neck of mandible. So it inserts into the neck of the mandible, capsule and articular disc of temporal mandibular joint. So that's where exactly the insertion happens. The nerve supply is from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve, as you will study, and mandibular nerve has a posterior and anterior divisions, and this one originates, its nerve supply originates from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. And the actions of lateral pterygoid is lowering the mandible to open the mouth, protraction of the mandible, protrusion of the mandible to opposite side, and then side to side movements. Okay, and what I've discussed right now until here is perfectly fine for your answers. If you want to go ahead and look at relations, I did not, and I was fine, but this is more information for you. So this was the end of our video. That's the muscles of mastication, and hope it was good enough of an explanation.